Welcome back, everyone. It's time for another deep dive into some cutting-edge research, and today we're all about photon detectors.
Interesting.
Those kind of unsung heroes of all this modern tech that we take for granted.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're everywhere these days.
Really everywhere.
Oh, yeah, they enable super fast internet speeds through fiber optic communication and help doctors see inside the body without surgery using medical imaging.
That's amazing. I never realized how much we rely on these tiny little things.
It is pretty incredible when you think about it.
And even self-driving cars.
Exactly. LiDAR uses photon detectors to allow those cars to see their surroundings.
So today we're taking a deep dive into a brand new research article from the Journal of Selected Topics in Quantum Electronics. And this was published just today, February 17th, 2025.
Hot off the press.
Very exciting. This paper details a breakthrough in single-photon detectors, and they're using a really surprising design element to achieve even better performance.
That's very cool.
You got to give me a hint?
Okay, think fractals.
Fractals. Like the patterns you see in snowflakes and ferns.
That's right. Those same mesmerizing patterns found in nature are now being used to revolutionize photon detection.
I am intrigued. I have to admit, I'm having a little trouble picturing how that works.
It's definitely a fascinating concept, but before we get too deep into the specifics, maybe we should start with the basics just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Sounds good.
What exactly is a single-photon detector?
Yeah, and why are they feel important?
Right. So a single-photon detector, or SPD for short, is a device that can detect individual particles of light, which are called photons.
So these are like the tiniest bits of light imaginable.
Exactly. Photons are the fundamental building blocks of light.
Okay.
And being able to detect them individually opens up a whole world of possibilities in various fields, especially those dealing with extremely weak light signals.
So we're talking about technology that operates at the most fundamental level of light itself. I mean, that's incredible. But what kinds of fields are using this technology?
Well, one of the biggest and most exciting areas is quantum computing.
Quantum computing? That sounds super futuristic.
It does, doesn't it? But it's rapidly becoming a reality. Quantum computers rely on the principles of quantum mechanics, which govern the behavior of matter at the atomic and subatomic levels. These computers actually use photons to represent data, and single-photon detectors are absolutely essential for reading and manipulating that data.
So these detectors are like the eyes of the quantum computer, allowing them to see the information encoded in these tiny particles of light.
That's a perfect analogy. And this leads us to another critical application, secure communication.
Secure communication, like unbreakable codes.
Exactly. Using photons to transmit information allows for incredibly secure communication channels because any attempt to intercept a signal would actually disrupt the photons, alerting both parties to the intrusion.
That's mind-blowing. So we're talking about quantum computers that could revolutionize fields like medicine and materials, science and communication networks that are practically unhackable, all thanks to these tiny photon detectors.
You got it. And the type of single-photon detector at the heart of this research is called a superconducting nanowire single-photon detector, or SNSPD for short.
Okay, that's a mouthful. How do these SNSPDs actually work?
Well, they use incredibly thin wires made from superconducting materials. When a photon hits the wire, it breaks the superconductivity for a very brief moment, causing a detectable change in electrical resistance.
So it's like the photon is tripping a tiny little alarm when it hits the wire.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And what makes SNSPDs so remarkable is their speed and sensitivity. They can detect photons at incredibly fast rates on the order of picoseconds.
Picoseconds?
Yeah, a picosecond is 1/1,000,000th of a second.
Wow. So they're also incredibly sensitive.
Oh, extremely. They can pick up even the faintest light signals.
So they're like the Olympic sprinters of the photon detection world, incredibly fast and able to detect even the slightest whisper of light. But where do fractals come into all of this?
That's where things get really interesting. By arranging the superconducting nanowires in a specific fractal pattern called a Peano Arced-Fractal.
Peano Arced-Fractal.
Yeah, researchers have been able to enhance the performance of these detectors even further.
Okay, hold on. We need to break this down. What exactly is a Peano Arced-Fractal? It sounds pretty complex.
It is pretty cool. Imagine a line that keeps branching out, creating a pattern that repeats itself at smaller and smaller scales.
So like those fractal patterns we see in nature.
Exactly. That's the basic idea behind a fractal. The Peano Arced-Fractal is just one specific type of this self-repeating pattern.
So it's like zooming in on a snowflake and seeing the same intricate patterns repeating themselves over and over again.
Precisely. But at a microscopic level in this case. And by arranging the nanowires in this configuration, the researchers have essentially created a detector that's incredibly efficient at capturing photons no matter what direction they're coming from.
That's clever.
Or their polarization.
Okay, so what does polarization mean in this context?
Oh, good question. Polarization refers to the direction of the electric field of a light wave. Light can be polarized in different directions, and some detectors are more sensitive to certain polarizations than others.
Okay, I get it. So this fractal pattern allows the detector to capture photons regardless of their polarization. That's impressive. It's like having a net that can catch anything thrown at it no matter how it's spinning.
Exactly. It significantly improves the detector's efficiency and versatility. And that brings us to how these fascinating detectors are made.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty of how they actually build one of these fractal-powered photon detectors. Where do they even begin?
It all starts with a silicon wafer, similar to what's used to make computer chips.
Oh, okay, so like a blank slate.
Pretty much. Then they coat the wafer with multiple layers of different materials.
What kind of materials?
Well, first they create a structure called an optical microcavity, which is designed to trap light and enhance the interaction between photons and the superconducting nanowires.
So it's like a tiny chamber that concentrates the light.
You got it. This boosts the signal. To create this microcavity, they use a technique called ion beam assisted deposition, or IBD,
IBD.
which involves bombarding the wafer with ions to deposit thin layers of silicon dioxide and tantalum oxide.
Wow, this sounds complicated already.
It is a pretty intricate process. By carefully layering these materials, they can create a structure that reflects light very efficiently.
So what's next? Do they add the nanowires now?
Yep. Now comes the heart of the detector, the superconducting nanowires. They deposit a thin film of a material called niobium titanium nitride, or NB-tin, on top of the microcavity structure. This NB-tin film is what actually detects the photons.
Okay, so we got this wafer for the microcavity and a film of NB-tin, but we're talking about nanowires, right? How do they go from a thin film to these incredibly tiny wires?
That's where the real nanotechnology magic comes in. They use a technique called scanning electron beam lithography, which is like an incredibly precise etching tool.
An etching tool.
Yeah, imagine using a beam of electrons to draw the most intricate patterns imaginable.
Wow.
That's essentially what they're doing here. They're using this electron beam to carve out these tiny, intricate fractal patterns into the NB-tin film, creating the nanowires.
And these nanowires are incredibly small, right?
Oh yeah, unbelievably small. We're talking about whips of just a few tens of nanometer.
Nanometers.
That's about 1,000 times thinner than a human hair.
It's hard to even wrap my head around that. So they've got the wafer, the microcavity, and the nanowires etched into this fractal pattern. What happens next?
Well, they need to connect this super-sensitive detector to the outside world so they can actually use it. To do this, they create a special keyhole-shaped chip to house the detector, which allows them to align it with an optical fiber. This fiber carries the light signals to and from the detector.
It sounds like they're packaging this incredibly intricate detector into a tiny keyhole-shaped chip. That's pretty amazing, but I can imagine how challenging it must be to build something so small and complex.
Oh, absolutely. Building at this scale requires incredible precision. Even the tiniest imperfections can significantly impact performance.
Did the researchers talk about any specific challenges they faced during the fabrication process?
They did. One of the biggest hurdles was ensuring that the nanowires maintained a consistent width throughout the entire fractal pattern.
Oh, I bet that's tough.
It is. They had to be very careful to minimize any warping or deformation of the photoresist during the fabrication process.
Photoresist, what's that?
It's a light-sensitive material they use to create the etching mask. It's kind of like a stencil.
Got it. So if the photoresist isn't applied perfectly evenly, or if it deforms, it can mess up the nanowires.
Exactly, and that can affect the detector's performance.
So every step requires incredible attention to detail.
Absolutely. And on top of all that, the researchers also shared some optimization strategies they developed to further enhance the performance of these fractal SNSPDs.
Really? What kind of tricks did they come up with?
Well, one thing they found was that using a thin layer of silicon or silicon dioxide as an adhesion promoter helped improve the bonding between the photoresist and the ND-tin film.
So it's like adding a layer of superglue to make sure the photoresist sticks perfectly.
Yeah, a good way to think about it. This helps to ensure that the nanowires are etched accurately. They also recommend using auxiliary fractal patterns during the lithography process to help maintain consistent nanowire widths.
Auxiliary patterns, what are those?
Think of them like guide rails to keep everything perfectly aligned during the etching process.
Clever. So it sounds like they've really thought through every detail to get the most out of these detectors.
Definitely. And when it comes to those optical microcavities, they stress the importance of careful design and spacing. The goal here is to minimize any potential deformation of the photoresist during fabrication.
Did all of these optimizations actually pay off? Did they manage to improve the performance?
They did. They reported achieving impressive results in terms of sensitivity and system detection efficiency.
That's fantastic. So we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about the basics of single-photon detectors, explored the unique design of these fractal SNSPDs, and delved into the intricate fabrication process.
We have.
And just to make sure everyone's still with us, can you remind us why these advancements are so important? What's the big picture here?
Sure, the development of these highly sensitive and efficient single-photon detectors opens up incredible possibilities for all sorts of fields.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, we've already touched on quantum computing, secure communication, medical imaging, and even environmental monitoring.
Right. Those are all huge areas with the potential to really change the world. I'm ready to dive deeper into the implications of this technology and its potential impact on these fields, but I think we need a quick break first.
Sounds good to me.
Back in a moment. Okay, we're back and ready to jump back into these amazing photon detectors. Before the break, we were talking about their potential for quantum computing. I gotta admit, it all sounds a little bit like science fiction.
It does sound futuristic, doesn't it? But it's becoming more and more real every day. Just imagine computers that can solve problems that are impossible for even our most powerful supercomputers today.
That's hard to even imagine. What kind of problems are we talking about?
Well, for example, we could design life-saving drugs that are perfectly tailored to an individual's genetic makeup.
Wow.
Or create blind new materials with incredible properties, things like super strong, lightweight materials for building, or even self-healing materials.
It's mind-blowing to think about the possibilities. But how do these tiny photon detectors fit into this quantum computing revolution?
It all comes down to how quantum computers work. They harness the strange and counterintuitive rules of quantum mechanics, where things can be in multiple states at the same time.
Multiple states at once. That's so weird.
It is, but that's what makes them so powerful. They can perform calculations in a completely different way than traditional computers. And to do this, they use photons to represent data.
So instead of the ones and zeros that our regular computers use, these quantum computers are crunching data encoded in photons.
Exactly, and that's where our super-sensitive, super-fast SNSPDs come in. They are essential for reading and manipulating that photon-based data. They're basically the eyes of the quantum computer.
I see. So these detectors are like a bridge between our macroscopic world and the mind-boggling world of quantum phenomena.
That's a great way to put it. And the better our detectors get, the more powerful and practical quantum computers will become.
So we're really on the cusp of a technological revolution here. You mentioned secure communication as another big application for these detectors. Does this mean we're going to have even faster internet speeds?
It's not just about speed, it's about a whole new level of security, a level that's virtually unbreakable.
Unbreakable codes. That sounds pretty appealing. How does that actually work?
Quantum communication uses another really wild concept from quantum mechanics called entanglement.
Entanglement. What is that?
It's when two particles are linked together in a way that measuring the state of one instantly affects the state of the other no matter how far apart they are.
Whoa, that sounds like something out of Star Trek, faster-than-light communication.
Not faster than light, but it does allow for instantaneous correlation between entangled particles. And by using these entangled photons to transmit information, we can create communication channels that are inherently secure. Any attempt to eavesdrop would disrupt the entanglement, and that would instantly alert both parties.
Wow, so it's like having a tamper-proof seal on your message. But wouldn't you need incredibly sensitive detectors to even pick up on these subtle quantum changes?
You're absolutely right. That's where our fractal SNSPDs shine. They are the key to detecting and measuring these entangled photons, making sure that the communication channel stays secure.
This is all pretty amazing. Quantum computers that could revolutionize medicine and materials science communication networks that are practically unhackable, all thanks to these incredible photon detectors. What other areas could benefit from this technology?
There's so much potential. Let's think about medical imaging for a second. Imagine being able to detect diseases at their very earliest stages, even before any symptoms appear.
That would be a game changer.
It would. Or think about monitoring the effectiveness of treatments in real time with incredible precision.
So we're talking about earlier diagnoses, more personalized treatment plans. That would be huge.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Think about monitoring brain activity with unprecedented detail, leading to breakthroughs in neuroscience and new treatments for neurological disorders.
It seems like the possibilities are endless. And what about using these detectors to better understand and protect our planet.
That's another really exciting area. These detectors could be used to detect even the smallest traces of pollutants in the air and water, which would allow for much more effective environmental monitoring and cleanup efforts.
That would be amazing.
And they could even be used to track climate change by measuring changes in atmospheric gases with incredible accuracy.
It's incredible to think that these tiny detectors could have such a big impact on some of the biggest challenges facing humanity.
They really could. And what's even more exciting is that this is just the beginning. As researchers continue to improve the design and fabrication of these fractal SNSPDs, we can expect to see even more incredible applications emerge in the future.
This has been quite the journey. We've explored the fascinating world of photon detection, delved into a mind-bending realm of quantum mechanics, and discussed how it could revolutionize everything from computing to communication to medicine. It's clear that these fractal-based single-photon detectors are a major step forward in photonics.
I completely agree. It's an incredibly exciting time to be following these advancements. I can't wait to see how these breakthroughs will translate into real-world applications that benefit everyone.
I'm with you on that. But let's shift gears for a moment. We've talked a lot about the amazing potential of this technology, but I think it's important to take a step back and consider the bigger picture. Imagine a world where quantum computers are commonplace, communication is truly unbreakable, and we have sensors that can detect everything from pollution to the earliest signs of disease. What does that future look like to you?
That's a really important question. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of all these advancements, but it's crucial to remember that they come with new challenges and things we need to think carefully about.
You're right, it's not all sunshine and roses. What are some of the potential downsides we need to be considering? It's easy to get caught up in all the amazing possibilities, but you're right, we need to think about the potential downsides too. What are some of the challenges we might face as this technology becomes more widespread?
I think one of the biggest concerns is the potential for misuse. Imagine what could happen if quantum computers fell into the wrong hands.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
It is. They could be used to break encryption, potentially disrupting financial systems, government communications, even personal privacy.
That would be disastrous. It's like with any powerful tool, it could be used for good or for evil.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to have open and honest discussion about the ethical implications of these technologies. We need to establish guidelines and regulations to ensure that they are used responsibly and for the benefit of everyone.
I agree. It's not enough to simply develop the technology. We have to think carefully about how it's used.
And another challenge is ensuring that these technologies are accessible to everyone, not just a select few.
That's a really good point.
We don't want to create a world where only the wealthy or powerful have access to quantum computing or unbreakable communication. That would just worsen existing inequalities.
So it's not just about access to the technology itself, but also about education and understanding, right?
Absolutely. We need to make sure that people understand how these technologies work, what their potential implications are, and how they can be used to shape a better future.
It sounds like a huge task. How do we even begin to address these complex challenges?
I think it starts with conversations like this one, open and honest discussions about the potential benefits and risks of these advancements. We need to engage policymakers, researchers, industry leaders, and the public in a collaborative effort to shape a future where technology serves humanity.
So it's a team effort.
Definitely. We can't just leave it to scientists and engineers to figure it all out. We all have a role to play.
What can the average person do?
Stay informed, ask questions, hold those in power accountable for using these technologies responsibly. We all have a voice in shaping the future.
I love that. It's inspiring to think that we can all be part of this technological revolution.
It is an exciting time to be alive, witnessing these transformative technologies emerge.
Absolutely. This deep dive has been an incredible journey. We've explored the fascinating world of photon detection, marveled at the mind-bending nature of quantum mechanics, and considered the ethical challenges that come with such powerful advancements.
I agree. It's been a great conversation.
And for those listening, if you're feeling as inspired and maybe a little overwhelmed as I am, I encourage you to learn more. We'll include a link to the full research article in our show notes.
And don't hesitate to reach out with your thoughts and questions. We always love hearing from our listeners.
So that's it for this week's deep dive into the world of fractal photon detectors. Until next time, keep those minds curious, and remember, the future is what we make it.